I feel like God gave me language for what my mission on earth is, and that is to help put God's words into people's hearts.
Rewrite.
New life, new beginning.
Hey, I'm Jonathan Unthank. Welcome to another edition of the Rewrite Podcast. And man, I am so pumped to have my friend Chris Brown of Elevation Worship here with me. Dude, this is so cool. I am so excited to hear your story. And first of all, tell us what's going on with Elevation right now.
Yeah, well, right now we're filming this in Knoxville. So we're on Elevation nights.
Yep.
Math is hard for me, but I think we're somewhere around the 80th or 81st show of Elevation nights over the last 4 years or something. We'll go out a couple times a year, and so it's been an amazing nights of ministry so far. And I feel like you've been, anytime we come to Knoxville, you show up, which is the best. Also, just for the audience out here, Jonathan he's a real one. So we saw each other. We were just talking about Forrest. We saw each other at the Forrest show, Frank show in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Was that last summer or spring or something?
Yeah. Yep.
And I like to run, so I was having issues with my right foot at that time running. And per usual, Jonathan, you're like, "Hey, what can I pray?" We see each other backstage at the Forrest show. What can I pray for you about? How are things going? I'm like, I can't really think of much. You know what? This is really weird, but I got a pain in my right foot from this running I'm doing. And you prayed for my right foot, and then I feel like you texted or something like a couple weeks later, or checked in. How's that pain? Man, that's one of the realest things. Thank you for just being you, and
yes, sir, man.
And always being so present and so available to needs around you. I feel like that's always been my experience with you.
Praise the Lord for that.
Yes,
praise
man.
the Lord for.
Yes.
By the way, how's your foot?
It's much better. It is much
ask,
better.
Yep. So running, so that's like the normal thing now. Are you kind of taking a break or easing back in, or?
Yeah, I'm back into it.
Yeah.
So that's probably a year ago almost, and so I've been able to exercise for quite some months now.
So exercise is like that's the norm. Do you
Yes.
early morning stuff or just
Early morning?
Yeah.
So my morning routine is now I don't even set an alarm, but I'm up at least 5 or 5:15, and I have a whole coffee routine. This is before anybody else in the house is up, and I make pour overs, but I weigh the beans. And then I grind the beans, and I weigh the amount of water that goes in. And that whole thing takes about 7 or 8 minutes, and then I'm able to take my perfect cup of coffee over to the same chair every morning, and I spend time in the Word and just able to pray. And then from there, usually the family's kind of getting up about the time I'm headed over to exercise. And but yeah, workouts they've turned into something that is really good for me.
That's cool.
Mentally, obviously, physically.
Well, when it comes to coffee, see our morning show team, Carol and Jeff.
Yep.
Y'all would get along quite well.
All right.
I mean, Jeff specifically, he's
dialed in.
I can't follow it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't follow the steps. I'm just like,
yeah.
Give me the pod. That's about as good as I get. But
take a Keurig.
He's doing the same thing. I mean, he is like weighing it. He's like, no, needs a little bit more of this. Whatever. Yeah.
Once it's a slippery slope, man. Once you actually start to go down that road and you find oh, this really does taste better. Then you start caring about what kind of beans you get, where they come from, and then you weigh them out, and then you're weighing the water, and the temperature is right. I'm between 200 degrees or 205 degrees. So yeah, it's so stupid.
That's so good. So Elevation Nights has been going well. How many days into it as far as tonight? Just about 3 or 4, right?
This is maybe night 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah. But we've been out for maybe 9 or 10 days.
Gotcha.
Yeah, some rehearsal on the front end.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Well, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here.
Man.
So the Rewrite Podcast, we set it up so it's kind of like taking it a little deep but casual and conversational about just your faith in Jesus.
Yeah.
And how that started, because we all have a unique story of how Jesus knocked on our heart. And I remember, like, for me, I was a kid, and my dad was a pastor, and it was just like, wow, just seeing that example that my mom and dad, that they showed us as kids. But then there's those that have, that come to Jesus moments, because they wandered away or whatever. But so tell us a little bit about just your story in general.
Yeah. I mean, sounds very similar to yours. How many years were your parents in ministry?
50 years. Wow. 50 years, yeah.
Incredible, man.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, so I was born in Fort Worth, Texas. My dad was in seminary. And then he took a church in Georgia for like 5 or 6 years, and then his first church, actually. And then we moved to South Carolina, the bottom part of South Carolina, near Beaufort or Charleston area. And the town's like 3,000 people, very small town. That's where I really grew up. He was there for 30 years, a total of around 35 years of like full-time ministry that he served in, he and my mom. But I grew up, we lived in a parsonage.
Oh, yeah,
so
dude.
in the Baptist world,
I know that.
a parsonage, like the church owns the house. And, the ministers get to stay there. And so it was literally across the street. Again, you got to picture the smallest town. And here's the church, and you walk across the street, and there's our house. And so as a result of proximity, I was naturally always I was literally in the church. I guarantee almost every single day of my childhood, because Dad was working across the street.
Sure.
So you just go over, or Saturday, my mom played organ Saturday nights. I had all these memories of my mom going over and practicing organ for all for getting ready for Sunday morning. Obviously Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. My first band, when I wanted to start playing in bands together and get friends together, we started the youth group met, and by youth group I mean there was like 5 of us.
5 of you, yeah.
Tiny.
Yeah.
But we'd meet in the basement of the church, and me and a couple buddies, we'd set up like a little sound system and write songs down there and practice and just be loud and obnoxious.
Do you remember any of those songs? Do you remember?
We'll just leave those in that basement. The first songs. But no, I was very, very blessed to have, I've shared this before, but have just wonderful, faithful parents, faithful to the ministry, faithful to the people they were called to serve, and very, very faithful and intentional to set an example for me and my sister. I have an older sister, of here's what being in full-time ministry can look like in a healthy way, where our family, me and my sister, always knew we came first for our parents. But they also sacrificed a lot,
Sure.
As any full-time ministers do. And but I grew up with a great example of like what it looks like to love God's church and to serve God's people. And I don't remember a specific moment that I didn't feel loved by God,
Sure.
or that I wasn't aware of God's presence in our home, which I think for some years, maybe like in my late teens or early 20s or something, I always kind of wished away, like, oh, I wish I had a little bit more dramatic
Sure, yeah.
experience with God. And as I was trying to remember what it felt like to not know the Lord, and I realized, like, man, what a blessing
It is, yes.
What a blessing
I
to
agree.
grow up in a home that just is filled with God's presence, to the point. Of course, gave my life to the Lord when I was 8, and then just I was 16 when I really felt God called me to like serve in full-time ministry. I didn't know what that was going to look like because of the example I had in my dad. I imagined it was going to just be serving a local church in a probably small town.
How many volunteer hours do you think you had
Countless, man.
over the?
Countless. I mean, what is volunteering when like your mom and dad are having you fold bulletins, you know, or go over and staple things together for children's church and like all the things. I mean, singing in the first song I sang, I think a solo in youth choir was a Michael W. Smith song, "Go West, Young Man," and then we did a Christmas uh, cantata or something for the youth, and I sang "Welcome to Our World" by Chris. No, oh, what's his name? I can't remember who sang that one, but like, I mean, I just was always like loved music, of course, and grew up in a musical home as well. But but yeah, man. I mean, I imagined ministry for me using my gift of music, but imagined it just like really serving the church. And I really feel just completely honored that I am still serving the church all these years later. And certainly looks very different than I imagined at 16, 17, 21. But it's the thing my wife and I gave our lives to when we moved to Charlotte to be a part of Elevation Church was we want to move here and we want to be faithful stewards of what God's called us to serve here and who God's called us to serve here. And now we're raising our kids in the church, of course. And all of this us being in this arena and seeing Elevation Nights and being able to release songs and albums through Elevation Worship. Been doing it for years, but it truly is an overflow of like our heart for our church.
Yeah.
And it's just that's the starting point for all of it. So
So I was going to ask you, like, when you're writing a song, you're talking about it coming out of the overflow. You know, you've had a time of prayer, just Lord, I'm searching for inspiration for lyrics in this next song. What are those moments like? Say for someone who's listening, maybe an up and coming worship leader, or they have that call on their life.
Yeah.
Is there those moments where you're like, that's it, and it's like, I got to jot this down quick.
As far as songwriting,
yeah, songwriting
specifically?
stuff, yeah.
Well, like so much of what I think makes Elevation unique is our pastor is he several years ago he told our staff, okay, I feel like God gave me language for what my mission on earth is, and that is to help put God's words into people's hearts. And he said, I believe that's going to continue to come through songs. Obviously, it's going to come through preaching his word and through sermons. But so much of our songwriting and our albums and everything is integrated into that mission from his heart. And so he's a songwriter. He and I met when I think I was 15, he was 17, and he was playing in a band together, with some friends, and I was playing in a band with some friends, and we played in this little club in Charleston, South Carolina. It was like a skate park. Kids would like be skateboarding in these ramps, and then on one end of this giant warehouse, there'd be a stage set up, and we'd go and play on like Friday or Saturday nights. And we met with our bands playing at some of the same shows. And so I always knew him as a musician. He was a singer. He was a songwriter. And so, fast forward all these years, and that same like David spirit that is just like pouring out praise and pouring out psalms, I think flows from him, and it's just gotten into our DNA. And so a long way to say, like, man, there's so many of our songs that I think come from sermons that he has, come from things that he's preaching, so many ideas that we'll be in a songwriting room and we'll write a song, and then he'll preach off of that song the next weekend or a month later or so much. And so I think just for any songwriters or worship leaders out there, like, I do want to say, because I've had this conversation with several different worship leaders who are serving in churches and are also trying to navigate through writing songs and recording music. And sometimes they're what they're really navigating is feeling like there's a ceiling of permission to do that from their pastor, and it's not because their pastor is against it. It just may not be in his DNA. And I've had a lot of conversations that I think ultimately some of the worship leaders are like have come to that conclusion. Like, okay, like obviously every single one, you're different, I'm different. Any church has a different DNA, and I just think like we happen to be one of those churches that feels so strongly about raising up a generation and a culture of worshipers and giving voice to new songs season over season for as long as God allows us to do it. And I don't think there's any like magic sauce to it necessarily. You just try to stay
It's faithful.
stay faithful
yeah.
and stay as tapped in and sensitive to moments and seasons, and obviously sensitive to the Holy Spirit. But then there's the craft side of it too, and so like we have so many good songwriters that are coming up from our team and have been writing for years and stayed faithful doing it, and seeing the fruit of a lot of songs that are being written from people I've watched cut their teeth on songs for 7 or 8 years, and now they're really like the songs are really starting to be ones that we sing in church.
It's like that for such a time as this moment.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
So it's all the things. It's like if you really feel called to do it, stay faithful to do it, practice it, hone your craft, put in the 10,000 hours. Also, if you're serving in a church, make sure it feels in alignment, I guess, with your church's leadership, so that it doesn't turn into a frustration. If you don't feel like that release to do it.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
Sure.
That totally makes sense. So moving forward now, you're a parent, you're a dad, you're a husband, taking the faith that you've known pretty much your entire life.
Yeah.
What does that look like now, pouring it into your kids, your family?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say like one of the most important things for us is obviously to just feel like the example in our home that we're setting for our kids, they're not seeing mom and dad one way at church or dad one way on platform, and then I'm someone different at home.
Yeah.
I want, more than anything else, I truly could care less and give all that up if my kids felt like, okay, dad seemed like a great guy for other people, and he didn't show us much love. And of course that's coming from the great example I had in both my parents. But I think like, man, love covers a multitude of wrongs, and so we don't know exactly what we're doing raising kids, but we try our very best to just make sure, without a shadow of a doubt, we've said this for as long as I can remember, if they leave our home one day and we may have screwed this up or screwed that up, but they knew there is no doubting mom and dad loved us.
Yep.
And there's no doubting mom and dad loved Jesus, and their love for Jesus and Jesus' love for them overflowed to us. Then we could have screwed up a lot of other things with parenting, but if they get that in their DNA, like I read this years ago, and we put it into practice, and it's like a joke almost as in our family. But I heard like a human needs 8 seconds of physical touch, of a hug, for them to feel like stress just leaves their body. So like years ago, it was like, in the mornings when they're coming downstairs, or at night when we're saying goodnight or whatever, or just in the middle of the day after school, it's like 8 seconds is longer than a typical hug.
Yeah, I'm thinking my 18-year-old son right now. I'm like,
He wouldn't, right?
I got about a half a second.
Exactly.
Or a fist
but
bump.
It's that's why I say it's kind of like a joke because like, Joa, my son he's 15 now. But because we've done it for years,
Yeah.
it's like I'll get in there.
Here we go.
And I'll just wrap around
Yeah.
and he just knows like, all right. And we laugh about it. Like, sorry, dude, it's only 6 seconds. We got 2 more seconds. But, I just know, like, we've instilled just, like, we love you.
Mm-hmm.
We love you guys so much. Yep. And you're a gift to us. And God has a special purpose for you in this earth. So
it's just being present.
Yeah.
Being present, being the example. Thanks for joining us today. The latest Rewrite podcast, Chris Brown, Elevation Worship. We'll see you next time. This is Rewrite, stories of new life in Jesus. I'm Jonathan Unthank. If you'd like to join a community of listeners who enjoy hearing the life stories of Christian music artists and influencers, then join the Rewrite text group by texting the word Rewrite. That's REWRITE to 81891. But more importantly, if you'd like to dig deeper into your own relationship with Jesus, you can begin that journey today by texting his name, Jesus, to 81891. God bless you. Join me next time for another episode of Rewrite.